Hello and welcome to another episode of Frugal Finance. Today we're going to talk about what is pushing or driving the property boom in the UK. So price houses have rocketed this year, or last year, 2020, up 7.5% over the previous year. So what's driving this, you might ask? Well, let's get stuck in and find out. So as you no doubt would have seen, property prices have increased this year by around 7.5 to 8% over the 2019 prices. This is generally speaking in the UK this applies to, but actually you'll probably find this sort of increase, generally speaking, in most developed countries. So specifically in the UK, what are the reasons for this happening? Why is it going up? We're in the middle of a pandemic. God knows why property prices are going up. People are losing their jobs. It should be falling. We should be into disaster street. Yet the property market seems oblivious to that. So why is that? So one of the key reasons is the stamp duty holiday. As you'll know, the councillor and the government released a statement to say that stamp duty for home movers and first-time purchases was abolished up to £500,000 back in the spring. That means that basically if you were purchasing a property up to the value of £500,000, you didn't have to pay any stamp duty as long as it wasn't a second home or an investment property or property abroad. This in turn has allowed people to move or upgrade or sell or whatever and move forward any potential purchases or moves because of this generous reduction, if you like, in stamp duty. Obviously it's capping it basically at 500,000. After that, obviously you do pay. That in itself is going to make anybody that's a bit sort of 50-50 as to whether or not to move. It's going to make their mind up, hopefully, was the plan from the government, and encourage stimulus into the property market. The cost of moving is expensive, and if you can avoid some of these taxes, then it makes it far more attractive for people to do. That leads me on to the actual want to move. So obviously with the pandemic, what we've seen is that people are favouring outdoor space. Generally speaking, flats with no outdoor space are probably a little bit unpopular at the moment, so to speak. And properties that have outside facilities, gardens, communal areas, all that kind of stuff that you can enjoy has become far more sought after. Obvious reason for that is because of the pandemic and the fact that people were locked inside for a long period of time, so they wanted that outdoor space. There's also a big shift away from larger cities. So cities like London will probably feel the hit long term from this, but basically people have realised that they can work from home. Their employers are a lot more flexible about it. They don't perhaps need to worry about the commute so much, and the price or the value that they can get when they move outside of those key city areas is incredible. What £500,000 buys you in London is not the same as what £500,000 buys you on the south coast. So the next reason for people wanting to move and the property boom is because there's a panic towards hitting the like button and subscribing. Only joking. But if you could subscribe and hit the like button, comment below, that really helps the video get out to other people. And don't forget to make your 1 or 2p coffees. Don't buy Starbucks. Invest the money. Don't waste it. Anyway, so one of the reasons, alongside all the ones I previously mentioned, is a panic to get mortgages ahead of a pending doom. So there's always this fear that the stamp duty finishes, automation's going to kick in, the jobs market's going to crash. People are worried about whether they're going to get a mortgage and so on. So there's actually a real shift, and I think you'll find mortgage brokers are really quite busy at the moment. From people who are making mortgage applications, they might be a little bit worried about their job, Don't forget, initially at the beginning of the pandemic, mortgage companies actually dropped their minimum deposit to 25%. They kind of withdraw out of the market. They do that very quickly. So if you're a bit kind of, I need to secure this now just in case it happens, you're going to be fueling that property boom. So you have to really think about long-term issues that may cause. Obviously, if people do start to lose their jobs, then not paying their mortgages, then obviously there's going to be a bit of a crash. So I'm hopeful that the panic buying or panic mortgage grabbing is not a massive part of the market, because obviously that will have a big negative effect in the future potentially. But realistically, that is a factor to why we see such growth. So the next thing is permitted development rights. Obviously the government have relaxed PD rights, which allow you to build much more extensions, do different types of work and things than perhaps you would have been before with the archaic kind of planning applications and planning legislation. So with PD rights, it has allowed a lot more people to look at properties and go, do you know what, it's going to be easy to build an extension here, or that conservatory, or build on the side of the building. That's going to apply to your bog standard purchaser, very residential person who might want to just build in their loft, all the way to builders or property developers. So obviously that is going to be a key factor in that. And let's not forget that even with the second home tax, you still have to pay the normal stamp duty. So any builders looking for permitted development rights and utilisation of that is also going to benefit from this, because the standard stamp duty is scrapped for them. They just have to pay the second home's stamp duty. So one of the key factors that's driving the property boom is the cost of borrowing is very, very low. That's mortgage borrowing. It's all down to an all-time low at the moment. Obviously, there's literally no interest at all. The base bank rate is nothing, give or take. And the cost of actually borrowing, so if you needed to borrow money for development, so once you've moved in, you want to make some home improvements, that kind of stuff, but you need to finance that, the cost of financing that is considerably less than it was a year or so ago. And you can get some long-term deals on those borrowings. So that is going to assist with the boom, because it makes people feel comfortable that they can actually afford to move and do what they want to do with the property they're moving into. So the age-old supply and demand is also a key factor to what drives property prices up. If there are very few houses available with gardens in the southeast, and there are shed loads of properties available in London that are flats with no balconies or outside space, then obviously what's going to happen is those properties in the southeast are going to be worth considerably more and increasing in value, because more people are trying to get them. So it's supply and demand. There's a very famous analogy of the person that made all the money in the gold rush wasn't the person with the gold, it was the person with the spade, because they supplied the spade so that people could dig up the ground. Now, if you've got the property with the garden, it's probably going to have gone up the most compared to, say, a flat. That's not to say flats haven't gone up, because first-time buyers, that market might fit them, or people that are downsizing, that market fits them as well. And obviously buy-to-let property, but essentially the main rush of the market, I believe, is your kind of terraced or mid-end terraced houses, your very standard sort of properties that people buy, and they are generally looking for more outside space. Well, that brings us to the kind of age-old question of, so how long will this continue for? Is there going to be a property crash at some point? When is this bubble going to burst? You know, is it going to go on forever? Does it sustain itself? Well, a lot of this will depend on a number of key factors, micro and social economic ones, and it will primarily depend on things like the vaccine, how long that takes to roll out, and then employers, how comfortable they feel about re-employing people, their businesses, any debt that they've taken on, managing those remaining restrictions. So there'll be lots of businesses where lots of restrictions will stay in place. The pandemic will affect anywhere like the hospitality industry, in terms of probably they'll be the least quickest out of this in that sense. So there are a number of key factors as to what may or may not cause a crash or a bubble, or for this to stop. Obviously, you've got stamp duties coming to an end in March. They may extend that, and that may kind of smooth out the transaction between when the stamp duty is planned to come an end, and maybe if they say go up to July or something like that, 2021. And then obviously you've also got the lenders, the mortgage providers, if they start to worry that properties are overvalued. So what I'm willing to pay for something because it's my dream house may not be the same as what the mortgage company want to pay for it. So if they start to get a bit twingy and worrying about overvaluing of things, then that might signal an early signs of the property market maybe plateauing or perhaps coming on the downslope. Obviously there's various stimulus that the government can put into place, but in my opinion there are only so many times people can move. There's been a rush of people that want to move from perhaps inner cities to more rural locations, from flats to houses, all that kind of stuff. But those people are not going to want to move again. So that transaction has happened. Very few of them will be repeat transactions. So it'll be interesting to see what really happens. Obviously, I've got other videos on this sort of subject and various other things about investing and so on. And as I say in all of the videos, this information is for entertainment purposes only. If you need independent legal advice or financial assistance, then you should seek that yourself directly. Having said all of that, I would be really grateful if you could subscribe, hit the like button, tap the notifications so you don't miss an upload, and comment below. The more interaction you guys give, the better the algorithm is for YouTube, and they get this video pumped out to more people. They see it, and hopefully they have some interest in it, or they gain some knowledge from it, or even if it is having an open discussion, or perhaps only a minute or 2 minutes of the information that is provided here, hopefully it is of assistance to somebody. So with that said, I'll end the video and I'll see you next time.